But the news, right, and I've seen a lot of this, like Kamala Harris got the better of Trump on that debate exchange, right? There were normies saying, I heard Trump is not going to debate Kamala. I'm like, what? Where did you hear that from?
Prices for everyday things like groceries are still too high.
Why?
You know it and I know it.
Yeah, they do know it.
You know, when I was Attorney General, I went after price-fixing schemes.
Oh my gosh. So she's going to prosecute corporations?
Why hasn't she had a press conference? She's the vice president. She can handle the questions. Why not do it?
She can't, bro. That's the problem. Acosta, she can't talk. If she could talk, she'd come out and talk. She can't. She doesn't have that skill set. Kamala's trying to reinvent herself. Don't know how that's going to work out for her because she's changed multiple times. So reinventing herself from her lefty past, I don't think is going to be authentic, but we'll see what they can do here. Kamala is hoping to distance herself from Biden, but you're in the same administration. So how are you going to do that? Plans a new focus on middle-class worries and woes. Why it matters, beginning in North Carolina later this week with her first policy speech. Kamala, who's been on, campaigning now for like a month, and continuing next week into the DNC, are going to tell Americans, most for the first time, who she is and how she'd govern. Now, I agree with this, most for the first time. I think a lot of people don't even know her. They just think of her as like an Obama-esque figure, but she is not an Obama-esque figure. Harris won't say it this bluntly in public, but our advisors do so privately. She wants to break with Biden on issues on which he's unpopular. First up is rising prices, inflation. This is part of a highly choreographed effort, part of a massive brainwashing campaign, to define herself, in some cases to redefine herself as a different kind of Democrat. Like what, a communist? On Friday in Raleigh, North Carolina, she'll outline plans to lower costs of healthcare, housing, food for middle-class consumers, and tell how she'll take on corporate price gouging. Everybody's gouging you. It's not that our government wrecked our currency. Harris was jazzed by a Financial Times poll this week showing her more trusted than Trump on the economy. It's crazy. Like, if that is true and the country votes for this, it's like wild. It's over. Now she wants to be not Biden on inflation because she is the cause of inflation. Arguably the biggest topic of the campaign by proposing clear, more urgent solutions. Harris doesn't want to be completely defined by the Biden-Harris record that she created. I can understand that because it's been a disaster. This is an admission that she's terrible. Well, it's just a little bit of a branding change, that's all. And she needs some distance, okay? 80% of U.S. adults in Gallup say they're dissatisfied with the country's direction. She's been in the White House. She also wants a clean break from Biden's often backward-looking lens on democracy and other issues. Harris is a California native, wants to carve out her own agenda to win the future, even though she's wrecked the present and the past. Harris will appear with Biden in Prince George's County, Maryland, MD, at an event on lowering costs from Americans, their first joint trip since Biden bowed out of the race 25 days ago. A big part of the Harris plan is to unapologetically change some of her more liberal positions. Okay, unapologetically. That's the phrase for flip-flopping, and claim that the White House experience helped her change her mind. Yeah, when she was running for president in 2019, she was against fracking. She wanted to decriminalize illegal border crossings, and she was for single-payer healthcare for all. That was in 2019, 5 years ago, not like 5 decades ago. No more, none of that. She's backed off all three. She's also fine plucking popular Trump ideas, stealing them, like the no tax on tips, which is popular in Nevada. She stole it. And, Trump is going to have to overcome the media onslaught. People will think it's her idea unless Trump can define it as his idea. And I had an interesting clip on this from this fella, Robert C. Callaghy, was on with Sean Hannity yesterday, and he was explaining that their Trafalgar group shows that swing voters are highly influenced by advertising, right? You and I, we're all plugged in here. We're just, glued to this stuff. And so we know where we're going. We know what the truth is, but most people are not, quite frankly, right? Most people are living their lives, just trying not to have their bank accounts drained when they go and buy turkey sandwiches. But the news, right? And I've seen a lot of this, like Kamala Harris got the better of Trump on that debate exchange, right? There were normies saying, I heard Trump is not going to debate Kamala. I'm like, what? Where did you hear that from? Right? And so they've got the propaganda, the programming that's already going into people's brains. And so this guy's saying, man, we're going to have to get some advertising out here. We're going to have to start shaking the tree here soon.
Going to win this election that's going to decide it doesn't watch cable news, conservative or liberal, and they don't attend Trump or Harris rallies. So the first person to talk about tips on advertising is probably the one that's going to own that issue. So it's about getting out with these issues and showing the contradiction. And again, the more you can use their own words, the better. The average person.
Yeah, and so we're going to see a big, spending blitz at some point. And I think Trump is gearing up for that. I've also seen some stuff about that. But here is Trump War Room sharing this clip. Kamala, when I'm president, it will be day one priority to bring down prices. You're like, what the hell are you talking about? You've been in the administration for for the last 3.5 years, crazy woman.
We believe in a future where we lower the cost of living for America's families so that they have a chance not just to get by, but to get ahead. Because while our economy is doing well by many measures, prices for everyday things like groceries are still too high.
Why?
You know it and I know it.
Yeah, they do know it.
You know, when I was Attorney General, I went after price-fixing schemes.
Oh my gosh. So she's going to prosecute corporations and these people are going to vote for her. Their grocery prices are going to go up again. They're going to double again. So I hope they know what they're doing. Here's more. The MSNBC people are really excited about this. So we're going to watch a couple of these terrible clips and then we'll backfill it with some intelligence. But here is what they're saying, right? It's part of a psyop. It's part of a propaganda campaign. It's a brainwashing operation that's underway right now. And they're going to tell us that inflation's amazing. Then they're going to come back out, probably drop the rates a little bit. So they'll goose the economy. They just need like 3 more months without any collapses or catastrophes, okay? And then they'll be good if they can win it, is what their thought process is. So they're excited about this. We all know it's fake because their numbers are fake. They come out and they say, look, employment's amazing. And then they revise the numbers down. We all know what we pay at the stores where we buy goods and services.
Why the consumer price index rose 0.2% last month in line with expectations, actually a little better than expectations. That pushed the inflation rate down to 2.9%. And Willie, that's the first time the inflation rate has been below 3% since 2021. And the Wall Street Journal reporting and breaking news that it pretty much seals the deal when it comes to a rate cut, an interest rate cut, when the Fed meets September 17th and 18th.
That's why.
Yeah, we're going to have Andrew Ross Sorkin join us in just a moment to walk through some of the numbers. But this is really good news. This July inflation report, 2.9% inflation year over year. As you said, that's the lowest since March of 2021. Prices are down, importantly, for food. Those have been nagging people at grocery stores for years now. And energy, still higher than anyone would like them to be, but they're headed in the right direction. This is great news. Take politics out of it. This is great news for the country. This is great news for people who need to go out and buy things for their families.
You guys are liars.
A great report here. Obviously, there's some politics at play here, John. This has been the issue. The one issue in the economy, despite so much good news about our economy as we make our way out of this COVID era that has been nagging. And it looks like from this July report anyway, we are definitely headed in the right direction.
Wow. Okay, so you can just see right there, just really enjoying themselves with their fake numbers and their fake news. And they don't care that Kamala is manipulating headlines to support them. The truth is, okay, the real people who are out there actually living in the economy, living here and understanding how this all works, know the truth, okay? This guy runs a restaurant. This clip came over from I meme, therefore I am. I'm a meme zero. He says, look, the owner of the restaurant, 4 restaurants made this video, this guy. When inflation was at 3.5%, today we're told that inflation is 2.9%. He looked at the prices of some products and concluded that the government inflation numbers don't make sense, okay? Since February, food prices have increased. So this is a video, and I don't know exactly when this video was recorded, but this is a pattern and a trend that we're seeing all across the board. Doesn't matter whether inflation's 3.1% or 2.9% or whatever they fake with their fake numbers and come out on their CNN or MSNBC conversations and try to propagandize us to death. This is the truth. This is what we experience. Everything is like $7, $8, $9, $10 that used to be $2, $3, and $4. And so here is this gentleman explaining what we all realize every single day.
I don't know where the government comes up with this 3.5% inflation number.
They make it up.
BS. We're out here in the real world. My name's Brian Will. I own 4 restaurants. I can tell you that in February, chicken breast was $1.64 a pound. Now it's $2.22 a pound. That's a 27% increase.
Not 3.
Ground beef was $3.87 a pound. Now it's $4.45 a pound. 13% increase.
Not 2.9%.
Cheese is up 11%. Ribeye up 25%. Avocados up 50%. These are core staple items in a restaurant. And our average inflation-induced increase is over 20% just in the last 6 months.
Yep.
I would love it,
and it
if
compounds.
it was only 3.5%. But that's just not real world. So do we raise our prices? Do we cut employees? Do we cut critical services? What are businesses supposed to do in this nonsense 3.5% inflation environment?
Or 2.9. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what fake numbers are. The numbers are 20%. The numbers are 30%. It's not 3.5%. It's not 2.9%. This is what we're seeing across the board. Everybody knows it and can experience it. And so here's another take on this. They say overall prices are up 20.2% since Kamala took office. Now they'll come out and they'll say inflation's going down. No, the rate of the increase of inflation is not as fast, but it's not going down. We're not at negative inflation. We're not in a recession yet. Here is another take from this fella.
Right now, for the July Consumer Price Index, headline number coming in as expected, up 0.2%. Up 0.2% on headline number follows yet unrevised down 0.1. So we went from basically the weakest, the biggest negative month-over-month change, a positive in CPI since COVID 2020, and now we're at a level that we haven't seen really since April, when we were up at 0.3. If you look at ex-food and energy, exactly as expected as well, up 0.2. The issue is, of course, it's following 0.1, which, just like the last number, was comping towards the first several months of COVID.
0.9%, 0.1%. It's all just a giant show, obviously. All right, so here's some more. There's nothing here that gives anybody relief. Okay, so Mika Brzezinski, Joe Brzezinski, and them on that show, they'll sit around and they'll say, wow, these numbers are incredible. This means good news for America and the American economy and for people who are, struggling to go and fill their gas tank up and to go buy some groceries for their kids. What is Kamala going to do that's going to reduce the pain that people are experiencing every day at the register?
When I hear these numbers, okay, I'm obviously the common man on the panel. There's two things that come into my mind. One, does this mean olive oil that I went to the store to buy the other day is not going to cost $20 for a container? No. I mean, it's olive oil. This is supposed to be like $5. And I mentioned this earlier. Is my electricity bill? Granted, I'm in Connecticut. We have sort of extenuating circumstances this past month, but $620? Wow. For electricity this past month?
Crazy.
That's horrible.
So, I mean,
this is what the air conditioner on all the time?
It wasn't on all the time. That's the issue. And so,
how big's your house, bro?
The underlying concern is, when are these things going to go down? Because, obviously all the PPI, CPI, that all matters to the investor. That matters to the institutional investor. But to the common man and woman who's watching this program, who wants to know, hey, am I going to have any money to save in the month of August, the month of September? That's what matters. And to your point,
You're right.
there's no movement in here that gives the consumer any sort of relief.
And I guess Kamala is just going to start suing everybody, like prosecuting all the corporations that are so greedy and ripping everybody off. I mean, is that the plan? What is her solution to this? One solution would be to not spend so much money all the time, because that is a big part of the problem. But there is serious pain out there, and it's terrible. I mean, our government's not supposed to wreck our currency, wreck our borders, and actively wreck our culture and country, but they are. Here is one clip from Fox and Friends. This woman is having a tough time and says, my husband and I are considering selling our house and living in an RV.
Nicole says this economy is so bad. My husband and I are considering selling our house and living in an RV because we struggle to pay our mortgage, even groceries for just two people. I can't leave the grocery store for less than $200 with almost nothing in the cart.
That is terrible. David says, my wife and I are on fixed incomes. The economy is killing us. Goes on to say, we can't afford gas, groceries to last us all month. Last month, we ate corn on the cob for 4 days till we finally got our Social Security check. It's miserable trying to live in this economy.
By the way, Trump he doesn't want to tax you on your Social Security check.
And Ainsley Elizabeth from your home state.
She says we cannot fill up our gas tanks anymore, just a little bit at a time as needed. Grocery bill is now $1,000 to $1,500 per month. I had to apply for food assistance for my children. My husband works all day and all night doing side jobs and extra work.
So price controls, maybe they're going to do price controls. So then we'll have absolute shortages and we'll have people standing out in bread lines, just like other communist countries that we've seen historically speaking. Yeah, I believe that. They are little communists. Now, one person who's out there hammering back against the fake news is Byron Donalds. And he's out there explaining very clearly what a joke this whole fake propaganda campaign is.
Well, first of all, I would tell the Trump campaign, there's your 30-second ad right there. Elon Musk is explaining why somebody who voted for Barack Obama is now voting for Donald Trump this fall. But when they talk about Kamala Harris, she supported the massive Medicare for All package that Bernie Sanders supported. When she debated for the presidency, she agreed with Bernie Sanders that she wanted Medicare for All. It would cost $44 trillion. She supported the massive Green New Deal. It would cost $100 trillion. She wants to raise taxes on business owners, whether they're large corporate guys like Elon Musk or small business owners trying to find ways to make ends meet. That's only going to hurt our economy overall. And then you have the other issues of she won't secure the border. She agrees with what Joe Biden has done because she is the border czar, and she was there every step of the way. Her policies are a disaster, which is why she's avoiding the press, which is why she's avoiding scrutiny. And the only time policy even comes out of the Harris campaign is when some low-level staffer puts out a memo. That's ridiculous. That is hiding from the American people. That is not the bold leadership that America needs at this this critical time.
So he's right. Kamala is a disaster, and she's flip-flopping all over the place. And if the media actually had any scruples, they would have a conversation with her about it, ask her some hard questions on it, but they don't want to do that. In fact, they're ignoring all of her catastrophic failures, and it doesn't just stop at the border. Of course, that's a big one. But remember, they put her in charge of AI. Nothing happened there. They put her in charge of buses, didn't they? Electrifying buses or something, like $20 billion or whatever it was. Like there's like 60 buses or something. They also did another thing with her. Oh yeah, broadband internet. Remember that? Broadband internet. I think that was hers. And the charging stuff, right? Wasn't that Buttigieg's, the chargers? So broadband internet, like $60 billion to hook a bunch of people up to the internet. Nobody's connected to the internet after like 3.5 years or however long that's been. She's a disaster. For $60 billion, they could have just bought Starlinks for everybody for the rest of their lives, probably for most of America. And it would have solved the problem, but they're not interested in solving problems. They're just interested in misappropriating money to their grifting friends. And so Kamala was responsible for this current environment, okay? All those people who were like, I have to sell my house now. Why? Because of Kamala and Joe. They came in here. Kamala was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act. And that came after we were mostly through COVID. We didn't need that at all. It was a giant grift. You never let a crisis go to waste. They didn't, obviously. And as we know, she was the deciding vote. She owns all of this. It's her economy, literally. Like it was 50-50. She came in, she broke the tie. They spent like trillions of dollars. This caused great inflation. She's been a total disaster. The media has just so far been allowing her to get away with it.
This is, most people don't know the ins and outs of an election and sort of, what's going on behind the scenes, but they know how much ground beef costs them, eggs cost them, bread costs, and they are sick of it. Kamala Harris is distancing herself from all of it. You say that the vice president owns President Biden's economy and she'll keep it going. Explain.
Well, as we saw from the debate, President Biden has not been running things, for the past, who knows whether it's months or years. So it could only have been the vice president who was in charge. And let's go back. The Vice President Harris was the deciding vote for the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yes, that's right.
So she owns those. They would not have passed. It was 50-50. She broke the tie.
Yes, she did.
Those caused the great inflation. She was the border czar, that immigration. So, I've talked about interest rates, inflation, and immigration are the things killing working class America. Tell me which one of those she doesn't own.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, she owns all of it. And that was an interesting chart here on this inflation. So we had a big bunch of spending, right? All those COVID bills. And man, it's just been wild. It was up to 9.1% according to their numbers, almost 10% inflation. And so the numbers are just problematic for all of us because we have to live here and live through all of this. So the question is Kamala going to come out and actually speak to anybody about any of this? She's been hiding in the bunker like Joe Biden has for quite some time. And now even CNN is asking, be nice if you could just have her come out and speak to us even a little bit. Like, can she just come out and do an interview for a while, do a Twitter space with Elon, an X space, sorry, Elon, don't ban me, do something, anything. Kamala, can you do that? Even this guy on CNN is asking
Would it kill you guys to have a press conference? Why hasn't she had a press conference?
Listen, the vice president and Governor Walz have been busy crisscrossing this country since the launch of this campaign and adding Governor Walz to the ticket. You saw the ways in which they went across the battleground states last week, generating rallies of thousands, 10,000 here, 15,000 there.
Yeah. But Michael, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Do you mind if I cut in? I mean, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Why hasn't she had a press conference? She's the vice president. She can handle the questions. Why not do it?
She can't, bro. That's the problem. Acosta, she can't talk. If she could talk, she'd come out and talk. She can't. She doesn't have that skill set.
We absolutely are going to do it. You hear her take questions as she's out on the stump, and
No, we don't.
As she said last week, we're going to be having a sit-down interview here before the end of the month. What she's going to be focused on and what this campaign is going to be focused on is communicating directly with the voters that are actually going to decide the pathway to 270 electoral votes. That's why she
and Governor Walz, to a press conference this week?
This past week, why we're doing a bus tour in Pennsylvania as we head into Chicago. And it's why we'll sit down for an interview before the end of the month to make sure that we can have a deep dive conversation about the vision that Kamala Harris has for where she wants to take this country and the contrast that we're going to have with Donald Trump. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that throughout the rest of
but one interview by the end of the month.
This month and throughout the rest of the campaign.
I don't want to, belabor this, but one interview before the end of the month. I mean, that's not a lot. I mean, can you commit to a press conference before the end of the month?
We will commit to directly engage with the voters that are actually going to decide this election. And that is going to be complete with rallies, with sit-down interviews, with press conferences, with all the digital assets that we have at our disposal.
So Acosta's just going to be like, okay, well, I guess I tried. I gave it my best shot. And did you hear how polite and nice he was when he came out and he said, do you mind if I cut in here? Do you think he would give that same benefit to anybody on the Trump team? No. All right. He knows what he's doing. So here's Luntz. Luntz is out. He's saying, he's got some interesting clips out. He was saying that Trump should be winning this thing. It's his campaign to lose. And, you know, he's always shifting narratives, and that's his job, is to kind of horse race this thing. Kamala's up front. No, Trump's up front. No, Kamala's up front. Right? That's why he's on cable news all the time talking about this. So you have to take that for what it's worth. He's a guy who likes to tell stories and share stories, and the stories change. And so they're always fun and whatever. But he is pointing out here that union leaders are not really thrilled with Kamala and Walz.
But I assure you that Donald Trump is doing better among the average union member, not teachers' unions and not the unions for government, but everybody else, the trades, the people who work with their hands. He's doing better among them than any Republican has done in decades. This is not going to be a problem for him. The union leadership is more divided from their membership, and the louder that it gets, the greater the divides are going to come. And in my focus groups, and this is remarkable to me, the union membership says they don't speak for me. And I've been doing this now since I hate to say this, 89, 1990. I've never had union people publicly say they don't speak for me.
Wow. Okay. So that's good, right? So there's a disconnect. So we hear, oh, the union is suing Trump, and all the major figureheads are out saying that Kamala is this new, incredible individual who's going to unite America, even though her record has been horrendous. When they get to know her, I think they realize she's not one of them, right? She's not somebody who cares about them at all. In fact, her entire upbringing has been in the government. She's never built anything in the private sector, as far as I know, ever. She says she worked at McDonald's one time, which is great. But then she was, Willie's BFF or whatever that was, and other things. So here's Mike Johnson talking about Kamala's horrible record. In fact, she was the border czar, and Biden put her in charge of stopping the flow. And they had another program that was meant to remove illegal migrant families, but that's not happened at all. In fact, they've allowed 90% of them to stay. Talked about this a lot yesterday. Not only are they bringing in people hand over fist illegally across the border, but the people here who are in the process of getting immigration, citizenship, they're accelerating them so that they can change the outcome of the election. That's in an article that we read yesterday, admitting in the article that part of the immigration plan is to change the demographic. And they actually had quotes from people like, I can't wait to become a citizen so I can vote for abortion. Okay, so that's what's happening too? So they're just giving them like, hey, you've been in the country for 2 minutes here. You're an American, go vote for Joe. And then everybody's going to turn around and say, well, at least they're citizens and we're grateful to have all these extra citizens. It's like, wait a minute, that's not the normal process that you go through to become a citizen, right? We want people to be, it was supposed to be a melting pot where at least we had people who believed in the Constitution and the basic principles of American freedom. And now it's like, we read that quote yesterday. That woman was from like Latina voters for women's rights or something. I can't wait to become a citizen so I can go vote for abortion. You go, is that what the vision was for America? Okay. So Mike Johnson's calling that out. New York Post is calling this out, saying they're just, bringing everybody in hand over fist. They don't care. And here is more of this story from the New York Post. 90% of the people a program is meant to remove them, 90% are staying. Of 24,000 migrants who were put on the Family Expedited Removal Program, okay, 24,000, more than 22,000 were allowed to stay. Only 2,600 have been deported, little over 10%. Terrible. Now, more than 3,600 migrants have also absconded from the program and are believed to be unaccounted for in the United States. Nice photo of a nice family, right? Kids in there, and it's like, wow, that's everywhere. How can you be so bigoted against the kids, the women, and the children? That's not the entire story. These numbers are further proof that the Harris policies have nothing to do with actually securing the border. Such a dismal rate of removals makes clear that the border czar is ignoring immigration law. These people are traitors, man. They have rules. They have the entire program is called Remove People Quickly. Expedited Removal Program. Get them out. 10% go. So everybody who's ever been involved in this program should be fired, honestly. I mean, it's like you failed your job, and if there's corruption in there, they should be prosecuted for stealing government funds. It's like theft of services, right? You hire somebody to do a job, they take all your money, they don't do anything, like they do like 10% of the job, and they steal your money. So it's just insane, and it happens all the time, right? Kamala, I think she got her broadband bill was $40 billion, $60 billion. Nobody's got internet, just never stops. Here's James Comer talking about some of this, explaining what a disaster she is, how terrible this has been at the border. Our friend James Comer weighing in.
If she was in charge of trying to subdue border crossings from certain countries, there's no evidence that she did anything other than invite more people to come across the border. When you make it clear that you're not going to prosecute anyone for violating the law for illegally crossing crossing our border, that's an open invitation to cross our border.
Right.
And that's what's happened under Kamala Harris. And one thing that we're trying to find out on the Oversight Committee is the cost of this. This has had a huge impact on Medicaid because many of these people, when they cross the border, they get free health care. That's what Medicaid is free health care. They get transported all over the United States. We've had mayors and local officials in many states that have contacted us and said at the 2 or 3 in the morning, a plane lands and unloads all these illegals into their community. That costs money. It costs money on the public school systems for these kids to be stuck in public schools that are already behind when they get here. So we want to know the cost, and we want to know exactly what Kamala Harris did other than basically send an open invitation to the world to illegally cross our border.
Yeah, and it's not something that works well, okay? You can't solve your population problem with unfettered influx of immigrants because society is a lot more complex than that. And what you end up doing is overburdening all the systems as they're experiencing in New York and Chicago. And they're not talking so much about that anymore, but infrastructure is being overwhelmed. Unless everybody who's immigrating brings with them their own teachers, their own doctors, their own engineers, their own construction workers, their own lawyers, every entity, right? All of the people who are, truck drivers and pool cleaners and all the things, right? Is a whole society coming across where we're going to have academics and PhDs to rebuild infrastructure for this whole new throng of people, or no? Or is it only just kind of other constituencies who don't have that capability to build those things? So when they come in, they will be overwhelming the current infrastructure. Been seeing it in Arizona my whole life, and it's now happening at a scale unlike anything we've ever seen before. So, and all authorized by the left.